We're heavy water users in Ohio, and the problems caused by use become increasingly difficult because our population is growing, and our water use is growing even faster. Back in 1920, for example, Ohio's population of some 6 million used a little over 7 billion gallons of water a day. By 1940, Ohio's population had climbed to 7 million, but its water use had risen to 8.5 billion gallons a day. Today, Ohio's population is nearly 10 million, but our use of water amounts to 13 billion gallons a day. By the year 2000, less than 40 years away, it is estimated that Ohio will have a population of 19 million persons who will require 24 billion gallons of water a day. Thus, Ohio's basic water problems are a growing population and faster growing water use. These problems materialize in competition for space. When we think of masses of people, we think of China or India. In China, for example, population density is 170 persons per square mile. In India, 310 persons per square mile. And yet, here in the state of Ohio, where we seem to have more than enough land, population density is 235 persons per square mile, more than China, not too much less than teeming India. Everywhere there is competition for space. Towns, cities, residential subdivisions, highways, all seek it. People want space. Water does too. This is a problem of space. For a river in flood is nothing more than water expanding into space and doing so disastrously. Let us examine why. Rivers and streams have two parts: the channel in which the water normally flows and an area on either side called a floodplain. These floodplains are as much a part of the river system as the channel. They are nature's freeways to carry off excess water. When heavy rains come with more water than a channel will hold, a river spills out onto its floodplain, which may range from a few hundred feet to several miles. And if that floodplain is inhabited, human lives are endangered, property lost, crops washed out, and livestock drowned. Floods in Ohio cause an overall annual damage of $5 to $10 million. Disastrous floods like those of 1959 cause damages of $100 million and more. We have learned to fight back. We have built dams. We have built levees. We have learned to fight floods through artificial means. But we have not yet coped with a basic problem, that of the floodplain. Here is where the major property damage and loss of life occurs. And here, in the face of all experience, people continue to erect homes, factories, and other developments. And they pay the inevitable penalty. In this aerial photograph, you will see two small creeks cutting through the countryside. In between them, a level stretch of land which represents their joint floodplain. It is not an area which seems likely to flood, but in the disastrous flood of 1913, it was entirely covered with water. Since that time, the area has been built up with houses, despite the fact that it is a proven floodplain. Here it is in 1959, and then that year it happened again. Rain, excessive rain. The creeks began to rise, they overflowed their banks. They spread out across the floodplain, and in between, caught in the flood, were the people who had built their homes in the middle of nature's watercourse. Today, this is the area shown in the photographs. Life goes on as usual. Will it flood here again? Yes. This is the story all over Ohio. People looking for a place to live, looking for space, and all too often finding it where the river has first claim. The river accepts the invasion silently, but it will have its day, for when it floods, it too must have space in which to expand. This is another problem of population and of space. If ever a state needed more places to play in, more places to launch its boats, and to fish in, Ohio does. In total area of lakes and reservoirs, exclusive of Lake Erie, Ohio ranks near the bottom of the list, 42nd in the nation. Added to this is the fact that much of our public lake and stream resource is unavailable simply because the public can't get to it. Thus, in view of our expanding population, space for water recreation areas becomes one of the truly critical problems of the future. This is still another problem of space for a growing population. What do we do with waste? Each day into lakes and streams, Ohioans dump billions of gallons of waste-filled water, much of it highly contaminated. Waste from industry, city sewers, coal mines endlessly seeping acid, silt from soil erosion. In some places, pollution is so great that streams have lost their normal ability to purify themselves, thus creating a health hazard and destroying the recreational value of the water. Ohio has made progress in coping with this problem. 200 sewage treatment plants built by communities in the past 10 years. 270 more industries treating waste than were doing so a few years ago. But even with the best of sewage treatment facilities, by 1980, Ohio will have to double its present reservoir space to assure sufficient flow in many of its streams so that acceptable water quality can be maintained. The importance of water quality will continue to increase as we rely more and more upon used water as a source of supply. Ohio's water problems are tied up in one word: space, or lack of it. Space for a growing population. Space for storing water. Space for recreation. Space for controlling floods. Each of these problems forms its own pattern of trouble. These patterns grow and merge. Uncorrected, they could become a pattern of calamity embracing the entire state. But there is an effective pattern of solutions. Foremost among these is the acquisition of reservoir sites. To store water, you first have to intercept it, and one of the best ways of doing so is by building reservoirs. The more reservoirs we have, the more we can capture of the 13 inches of Ohio's rainfall each year, which does not evaporate. Reservoirs fill many needs. They supply us with water, protect us from floods. They provide us with recreation. They are vital in water quality control. Baroque Reservoir in southeastern Ohio provides flood control. It furnishes water for several communities, and it serves as an excellent recreation lake at the same time. Such multi-purpose use makes our limited space go further and greatly reduces the cost to the taxpayer. Many municipalities build reservoirs for water supply. Under careful management, these are often used for fishing and boating, in addition to furnishing water safe for human use.